Hello and welcome to another standard video here in the Foundations metagame. Today I'm building a deck around the card Genesis Wave, which got reprinted in Foundations, a sorcery for X and triple green, revealing the top X cards of our library, putting any number of permanent cards with mana value X or less from among them onto the battlefield, and then the rest is put into our graveyard. So for Genesis Wave to be optimal, we want to play it in a deck that doesn't have any other non-permanent cards besides Genesis Wave itself. That way if we cast it, we're guaranteed to hit lots of permanents. And in this deck, we're kind of topping out our curve at 5 mana, so the sweet spot is casting Genesis Wave for at least X equals 5. That way we can hit all our permanents, including the green shell, a 4/6 with reach. As long as we have 10 or more lands, our creatures get +2/+2, and in a deck with Genesis Wave, we can put lots of extra lands on the battlefield, so it's not too difficult to meet that condition. And then whenever the green shell or another creature we control with toughness greater than its power enters, we can look at the top card of our library. If it's a land, we can put it in play tapped, otherwise we can put it into our hand instead. So the green shell also provides ample card advantage and also pairs well with some of the other creatures in our deck that have higher toughness than power, such as at 1 mana, the Insidious Fungus, which we can play on turn 1 to then sacrifice on turn 2, helping us ramp by drawing a card and putting a land card from our hand onto the battlefield tapped, but can also be used to destroy artifacts or enchantments. And then Llanowar Elves can also help us ramp on turn 1, just making green mana. It's another excellent reprint for this style of deck. Even though it doesn't necessarily synergize with the green shell, it's still an extra creature that will eventually get pumped by the ability. Then at 3 mana, there's the Lookout, which will also trigger the green shell and find an extra land to put on the battlefield tapped. The Outcaster Greenblade has a small desert sub-theme in this deck. We'll find a land when it enters, can either be a basic or one of our deserts, and then has higher toughness than power, so also triggers the green shell. Then we're also playing with Spelunking, making sure our lands now enter untapped, since we do have quite a few tap lands throughout, especially synergistic with the Archway, which can now enter untapped and immediately make 2 mana after picking up another land. And then when we go off with Genesis Wave, we can also have our lands enter untapped to immediately make more mana. And then at 4 mana, there's the Case of the Locked Hothouse, which lets us play an additional land each turn. It's also very synergistic with Archway, where we can pick up a land and then immediately replay it. And then once the case is solved, if we control 7 or more lands, which is quite trivial in this deck, we can now start playing lands, creatures, and enchantments off the top of our library. So that's everything except Genesis Wave, so that's also very good. And then the Entrancer gives us some interaction by maybe stunning opposing creatures, putting 3 stun counters on them, so those won't be untapping for a while. But we can also tap our own creatures if we want to draw 2 cards, so it can tap itself, or maybe better yet, a Lookout, or maybe a Fungus we don't care about, so we get to draw 2 cards and keep digging through the deck instead. And then at 5 mana, we also have 2 copies of Tatyova, which has also been reprinted in Foundations, with a landfall, gaining a life, and drawing a card, so it can also be incredibly powerful with Genesis Wave. Just have to be careful that we don't end up decking. And then the mana base, we are playing a very high land count, since we want to keep hitting land drops turn after turn. We have the full set of Archway, as well as the Pylons as another desert, so if we pick up the Pylons with the Archway, we also get to Surveil, and the Pylons itself, when it enters, lets us Surveil 1, so that can also dig a bit deeper. We've got 2 copies of Hedge Maze normally entering tapped, letting us Surveil 1, but again, if we have Spelunking on the battlefield, that's no longer going to be the case. And then Botanical Sanctum as an untapped dual land early on. We've got Vinestalk as a creature land, can also be helpful in closing out the game. Can also upgrade some of our smaller creatures into 3/3s, and then we still have all the extra +2/+2 from Green Shell on top of that. And then Thornwood Falls for a bit of life gain. And then Yavimaya Coast, another untapped dual land, and then plenty more basics. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play. This hand could have been okay if we could actually cast Llanowar Elves on turn 1. As is will mulligan, and this we can try. So turn 1 Elves sets up Spelunking on 2, put in Hedge Maze, which will then be untapped. And we get to Surveil a bunch. Maybe I want to spread out the Surveils more. Well, looks like we'll get to Surveil every turn. And a Vinestalk doesn't seem super needed. So I could play Tatyova next turn, but it's without an extra land, so maybe better off waiting a turn. So we get immediate value, and then pylons I can keep. Don't even think I want to attack for one, in case they can make a token at instant speed. And then the fungus can maybe blow up an enchantment here. And yeah, Enduring Innocence, although that one will come back. So it's not the best one to destroy with the fungus. So maybe we just keep it in play for now. And then go Tatyova, play a land. Can maybe draw and then surveil. Alright, so we definitely don't need to prioritize lands anymore. Opponent just activating Fountain Port to draw. If Innocence attacks, it would imply that they have a Sunfall that they're maybe trying to set up and don't want Innocence getting exiled. Now, can maybe start with the Pylons. Or, let's see. Yeah, I'll start with Pylons, and then still maybe draw before surveilling. Find a Lookout. Archway is decent. It guarantees more land drops. So I can play the Lookout, which is guaranteed to hit the Archway. And it's untapped, so it actually generates a bit of mana too with Spelunking. Another Archway, sure. So I can activate Fungus, now just putting an extra Archway in play. And Green Shell's looking good. Maybe I could have chained together Archways after tapping them for mana. But yeah, just casting the Green Shell seems decent, and then I can follow that up with Fungus, which also triggers the Green Shell. Now we're probably going to get our board swept by Sunfall, but at least we'll have lots of lands in play, so I don't really mind. Ideally hit another land here. Perfect. Untapped, draw with Tatyova, Genesis Wave on top. And I can activate Fungus at any point once again. So I can probably pass now. Well, that was an exciting turn. And yeah, there's a Sunfall. So I can at least draw on the way out. And now I can maybe surveil before drawing. And Trancer seems acceptable. Alright, so the board looks cleaner, but we can still Genesis Wave for 1,000,000 if we'd really like. Green Shell's also active. So how much mana are we working with here? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I could go back-to-back Green Shells. I guess I also picked up another Tatyova, so maybe should have started there. And then I can still play a land, play Lenor Elves. Yeah, it's a close call. I've got plenty of cards in hand already, so it's not like I really need Tatyova. Sure, let's go with another Green Shell then. Alright, so opponent wiped our board and we're back on it already. Finding our creature lands would be decent here. Although we milled one Vinestalk. Parting Gust gets rid of the Green Shell. So they're out of sweepers is basically what they're implying. If we can find another Fungus, we can blow up the Incubator, so that's no longer a concern. And a Caretaker's Talent. So 2 mana for abilities of land sources, not enough for the Incubator. If they level up the talent, the token also won't do much unless they get a level 3 talent first. Alright, and a Lay Down Arms on our elf. So what's next? Could just Genesis Wave for 1,000,000, since they seem to be out of a board wipe. Yeah, that could be fun. Could also play Tatyova first to really go crazy. Yeah, there's only one Green Shell left. So I'm not going to be able to pump the team for lethal here. So yeah, a couple ways we can go about it. Maybe this is just a Tatiova value turn with a bunch of lookouts. Green Blades and extra threats. Sure, we can keep line on top, I guess. Another Genesis wave. A land in play. And maybe time for a Green Blade. Yeah, we're running low on lands in the deck. Alright, there's the Fungus. So that can do a bunch of things here, including dealing with the talent. But maybe I don't need to play just yet. And could play another Green Blade, although honestly we have enough pressure on the board as is. So get an attack in for 9. And then 19 cards left in deck. Yeah, we might not end up using the Genesis wave, which makes me a little sad. So we still haven't found our creature land. Sure, I'll surveil. And discard a couple lands. Okay. Get lost my green shell. That's fine. And an Overlord. That happens. Could have maybe destroyed the talents, because now they're just going to try and level it up. And then with double Entrancer, we should be able to clear a path. Okay, so maybe not the ending I was hoping for. But yeah, with 15 cards left, we have to be careful with Genesis Wave, especially with the Tatiova on the battlefield. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a Keeper. Missing a 1-mana accelerant, but we've got Spelunking and Case, which is especially good with Archway if we can maybe save it to then pick up a land, play an extra land right away. And Hexmage, so red-black sacrifice. And then, yeah, turn 3 lookout. Setting up Case. Opponent can sack their Cursed Roll token, hit us for 3. So they're off to a nice start. Is there an argument for Spelunking here instead? Does mean I would have to play the Archway, which I think I want to save to go with a Case. And then Genesis Wave is looking good. Just need to try and stem the bleeding a bit. Fear of Missing Out is next. Could also consider playing the Entrancer just to have a larger blocker. But then I kind of miss out on the Archway turn. Okay. Yeah, with Spelunking in play, Archway can come into play untapped, immediately make 2 mana. That's pretty strong. But at least we got a bit of value off our Case. And next turn we untap with at least 6 mana. So we can maybe double spell. And then the goal is Genesis Wave for X equals 5. Torture Tower or Lookout, so opponent maybe setting up Delirium. And they successfully did. So we're taking at least 8 damage here. That's kind of scary. Could have been dead if they also had a pump spell for the Hex Mage, but these decks typically don't have Monstrous Rage. Although it's going to be a Goblin making a token. So yeah, we've got some catching up to do. If I Spelunking, I can at least play an Entrancer. And then, yeah, the Sanctum will be untapped. Could also go Green Blade, get an untapped Desert, and then play Entrancer. Which is maybe still more important, just to have an extra blocker. Sanctum, I don't need to keep. And then we also have an extra lane to play with the case. And then, yeah, probably want to tap the Fear. Case is solved, and next turn we can Genesis Wave for at least 5. Can do it for 6. So hopefully we did enough to stabilize. Another Hex Mage is acceptable. Can put the roll on the 1/1 token as well. Opponent's still attacking, so they might have another Torch the Tower. Green Blade is going to get bigger. Do we need the reach for some reason? I don't think so in this matchup. Could have also double block, to be fair. Right, opponent's going to finish off the Entrancer. And our opponent makes a token. Alright, green shell on top, good to know for Genesis Wave. And we're just gonna X equals 6. Do want to make sure we actually make green mana auto-tapper. Alright, there we go. So X equals 6. And hit 6 permanents, including double green shell. And then sure we'll resolve that. Can keep land on top since we'll be able to put it in play here. And another Genesis Wave I wouldn't mind drawing. Gain some life as well. Play a land off the top. Can play another land thanks to the cases as well. Tatyova coming up for more life gain. And then I can play maybe the Fungus, so we have that available to blow up an artifact or enchantment while triggering green shell some more. Alright, that's probably good enough for now. Could start attacking. Sure, we should have enough blockers back now. Could also just play another Fungus, to be fair. And draw another green shell. Second case is solved. And yeah, there's multiple Genesis Waves waiting for us, with maybe a Tatyova as well. So just need to make sure we don't get burnt out somehow. Opponent's gonna go digging. We also have a Vine Stalk we can activate. Can upgrade our Llanowar Elves perhaps. So the plan's likely play green shell, and then maybe just Genesis Wave again. Or do we want to have some fun with Tatyova? Just need to make sure I don't end up decking. So I'll keep the Elf on top, even though I don't necessarily want to draw it. Alright, so now we can green shell, and then still wave for a bunch. Spelunking's not bad either, or we can get a 4th green shell on the battlefield. That's probably good enough. Could have also played Spelunking in the meantime, so these lands enter untapped. 12 cards remaining. Yeah, I think we've done enough. So let's go ahead and attack. Damage happens. Opponent's at 2. Alright, fine, I'll play the Spelunking out. And then 10 cards remaining. Alright, fine, I'll play the Lookout if you insist. Probably want to decline putting additional lands in play now, since otherwise we're definitely going to end up decking with Tatyova. Alright, 4 cards left. Sure, I'll play the Llanowar Elves. And then 7 cards to keep. It would be funny if our opponent ends up milling us out somehow. Would be a deserved win. Alright. And even if they somehow cast a board wipe for 4 mana, we still have Vinestalk to cross the finish line. And Disturbing Mirth is gonna draw. You can see the Urabrask's Forge, which we can also destroy with a fungus. Opponent hits land drop number 4. We're probably closer to 40. And a final Vengeance takes out the Green Blade. Yeah, our opponent's only hope is that I cast more creatures before attacking. But I guess we'll fire up the Vinestalks for maximum damage. And see how high the number can go. Thanks to our opponent for sticking around. And we did exceed the 100 damage mark. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Can't actually play Fungus turn 1, but I think our hand's still good enough. Can play Fungus on 2. And then, I guess if we play Archway, I won't be able to play the Lookout on the following turn. So it is a little awkward here, not gonna lie. I think it's still worth it to get the Archway in play. And then next turn I can at the very least activate the Fungus. Opponent blue-white, Haughty Djinn, Oculus it looks like, discards the Oculus. Okay, so yeah, attack for 1. And then activate the Fungus end of turn, most likely drawing and putting a land in play, but can maybe wait in case they play an enchantment worth destroying. It's going to be another Chart of Course, so probably going to see a Helping Hand get back Oculus as well. No, we do not. Alright, that's good for us. Put in the Pylons. And don't need another Fungus. Okay, so we have 5 mana. Cannot quite double spell, so maybe it's a turn for Case. Play 2 lands. Is that better than just playing a Lookout here? Yeah, getting the Case going seems useful. And then next turn with double Lookout we can potentially solve it. Moment of Truth. So yeah, opponent's still needing to find their reanimation spell. They are giving us time to set up, and they seem to have missed once again. So can go Lookout, plus a Green Blade as well. And just play land for turn. Don't really want to play Archway, although I guess we hit one with a Lookout. So now we won't have solved the Case necessarily. But yeah, I can still play an extra land as well, so that helps. Yeah, let's just go Lookout. And then if I play Forest, we'll have solved the case. So, don't necessarily want to play Archway. Genesis Wave on top, so that would be a nice play. Opponent finally hit their helping hand to get back Oculus, but they gave us potentially too much time here. Archway on top, so could float a bunch of mana, play the Archway, pick up a Forest, and then maybe Genesis Wave. So X equals 7. Double Genesis Wave. Sadly getting milled, so we got a bit unlucky here, but still got some value. And Transfer we can keep. I was hoping to hit Tatiova and Green Shell, instead we milled double Genesis Wave or only non-permanent. But with double Entrancers we can draw more cards, and with a solved case it shouldn't take us too long to eventually take over. Opponent passes, manifests. Not sure if they're on a build with counter spells, but don't see any in the graveyard. Genesis Wave on top, so we wouldn't mind drawing into that. With the Entrancer, targeting our own Lookout. And the 4th Genesis Wave is guaranteed to hit all permanents at least. Alright, so can maybe wait another turn on Genesis Wave and for now play the Green Shell. Although, yeah, let's maybe start there. And that's going to be big enough to block the Oculus as well. Possible they have a 3 steps ahead that can hard counter, yep. So that was definitely a reason not to Genesis Wave there. Alright, so do we want to play the Lookout? That seems fine. Another Green Shell sadly is going to get shuffled now. Sanctum still enters tapped. And now a Lanor Elves, or we can play another Entrancer. Maybe tapping down the Oculus at this point. And hope Genesis Wave resolves. Again, since we have the solved case, I'm not too worried about missing out on a bit of card draw. And we'll hang back. We have 28 cards remaining. Still 3 Green Shells, 2 Tatiovas. We have double Vinestock in the mana base already. So we should have enough ways to close out the game. And there's a Haughty Djinn. We've got plenty of reach creatures as well. So our opponent can still cast another 3 steps ahead with the counterspell mode thanks to the discount from Haughty Djinn. So we kind of need to bait that out before going for the final Genesis Wave. Entrancer might do it. Did not seem to prompt a response. Alright, so it might be time for a big Genesis Wave then. Kind of afraid I'm gonna end up milling myself. So maybe I should keep the Forest on top. Alright, so X equals 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, let's do 10 maybe to keep it safe. Can pay for double Phantom Interference, but looks like they have another 3 steps ahead. Alright, Phantom Interference, pay the 2. So I'm glad we didn't fully tap out. And Interference again. And yeah, let me put all of those in play, although we have to be careful with Tatiova. Maybe I have to decline Tatiova. And just go for all the lands and the green shell. Because, yeah, we will end up decking at some point. If our opponent's playing Founding the Third Path, they can also mill us with that. "14 cards left. Alright, and then can finally start attacking. Play another Green Blade. We're out of deserts. And sure, play Lenor Elves. And attack. And then next turn we can play 2 more green shells. Our opponent's creatures are still tapped. Into the Floodmoss, pretty good, bouncing a green shell, but opponent is still facing plenty of damage. And we can also fire up the Vine Stalks now. 3 steps ahead to draw and discard. So they must have top decked that recently, and our opponent scoops it up. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand might be a little bit too slow, especially in the best of 1 meta where there's a lot of aggro. We're probably not going to get to turn 4. This I can try. So turn 1 Fungus, turn 2 we can activate. And then hope to find some of the cards we had in our first opening hand. Opponent on an enchantment deck. Well, Fungus can destroy enchantments too. So red-white. And Ethereal Armor. Take it. And then next turn we'll have to decide if we want to destroy an enchantment or not. Monstrous Rage for Trample. Say opponent's already going all in on 1 creature. We take 8 on turn 2. And guess we can Surveil. Pass a turn. What I could do is chump and then destroy the monster roll tokens so they at least don't trample. And then Lookout can chump once again. Yeah, that might be the play. And then hope to find an Entrancer to tap down the Scavenger. There's no other way we can realistically survive. Of course, if they have another Monstrous Rage, this game's all over. So we don't take any damage, and then now we can play the Lookout. Although our hand is not particularly exciting here. Are we dead to Sheltered by Ghosts? Would pump double armor. Get another counter, 1 extra power, so that might do it too. Feather of Flight is flying, but we have reach, so we can still jump. But yeah, we're pretty desperate for a good top deck. Opponent says good game, but the game is not over yet. Alright, Entrancer's what we needed. Although it's still only a temporary solution. And then we'll Surveil. Archway is not needed. So Green Shell would be good here. Can look for Tatiova, the Case of the Locked Hothouse, and eventually Genesis Wave. Opponent's now gonna have to build another big threat. Remove Entrancer. So yeah, they do have a pretty fast clock here still. Alright, we found the green shell, so our draws have been very fortunate. Find Tatiova. So just a tapped Vinestalk. Hope they didn't draw an enchantment, and then green shell can actually hold off an attack. Ooh, that's bad news. So if this is a Monstrous Rage, that would be very bad for me. Could just be a Shard Mage's Rescue, which still represents 4 extra power and toughness, thanks to the Eerie triggers. So, yeah. I probably have to block Scavenger, but it's gonna be a chum block. Because if I don't, I just die to any enchantment with 3 +1 counters. So I don't have much of a choice. And it was even another Monstrous Rage for Trample. So I don't think we're dead, but that was certainly the worst case scenario. We're at 2. And yeah, Tatyova's not gonna save us here. There's nothing I can draw into that will keep us alive. Alright, now it's good game. But yeah, opponent still needed to top deck as well. Otherwise the green shell might have eventually found more action, but now the Scavenger's also fully unlocked. So that was also kind of a problem waiting to be solved. Alright, good game. Opponent's got a bunch of triggers on the stack, doesn't matter where they put them. Even if we had a bounce spell, opponent's got a ward, so it's not like I can bounce their creature here. But yeah, the aura matchup, as you can see, is a pretty bad one. Can potentially be improved by including a few bounce spells, but then our Genesis Wave gets worse too. So sometimes it's okay to have bad matchups. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a keepable hand. Lenor Elves setting up turn 2, a Lookout perhaps. And then we've got a creature we can tap down with the Entrancer. And then we can hopefully find some of our curve toppers, including Genesis Wave. The case isn't bad either, especially with Archway. So, play Case, play Archway, play Forest, play Elves. In case our opponent has a Tear Asunder, I maybe should have played a land first so they couldn't respond to the Archway trigger by removing the case and preventing the second land. So, small interaction to keep in mind in this matchup. Opponent's gonna go for the Throat Elves, they were waiting for a bigger creature. And Annex, so opponent on kind of the mid-range Demons deck. Genesis Wave is nice. Do we want to go for it right now? Would only be for 4. I really want to go for 5, which is kind of the magic number. So yeah, let's Entrancer, tap down Lookout, should have attacked for 1 first. Unlikely to make a huge difference, but now we play Falls and Sanctum, and then next turn we can Genesis Wave for at least 5. And then the case is going to be solved as well. Opponent's got the Archfiend. And now Fungus, also an answer to the Annex. Could blow it up before they make another demon, but I should probably just Genesis Wave while the coast is clear. So X equals 6. And put 6 permanents in play, beautiful. Including double green shell. Look at all those green shell triggers. Surveil, keep land on top so we can put it on the battlefield. Surveilling again. Genesis Wave. I guess we'll keep on top and then draw into it with a green shell. Another Genesis Wave, so yeah. We should have this covered. A Lookout. Yeah, I'll keep on top. We already met the threshold of 10 lands. So, yeah, this probably can't go wrong anymore. Alright, and then still have an extra land to play. And could play the Fungus, or I could wait to potentially play it next turn in case they remove it, but honestly at this point it probably doesn't matter. We get to trigger Green Shell as well. If we had a Spelunking in play, we could have gone off even harder. Alright, and then Yavimaya Coast we probably don't need anymore. Hit you for 7. We've got plenty of reach creatures to block the Archfiend. Case is solved, and there's Spelunking now. Their opponent's gonna need some sort of board wipe. Go for the Throats is a good starting point. If they have another one especially. Alright, opponent actually did. So we still have a game, perhaps. Although I can just Genesis Wave again for a bunch. And a cut down for the Fungus, triggers Archfiend. Yeah, which can attack for 6, and end of turn Annex triggers again, so that was pretty much their best case scenario. Although if we hit a Tatiova here with Genesis Wave, we should be in business. Alright, it's probably worth it to Spelunking first, just so all my lands enter untapped of Genesis Wave. Surveil, don't really need Yavimaya Coast. And then what's a good number to Genesis Wave for here, so we don't end up decking? Maybe if we do 10, then I don't think I'll end up decking with Tatiova. Did not hit a Tatiova in fact, but we did hit a green shell. Get a bunch more triggers, and transfer on top. Now there's Tatiova, so we can keep that, which can gain us more life. Although we're probably, let's see, there's one green shell left in the deck, so that's kind of what we're looking for. And transfer could also tap down the Archfiend. Triggers the green shell. How much damage are we presenting here? 6, 11. So yeah, just hitting another green shell would be lethal. Can I Genesis Wave for enough? I can Genesis Wave for 3, 4 here at least. So let's maybe just play a land and draw. Should have drawn and then surveilled. But I'll take the Entrancer. Can play another one off the top at least. So, yeah, kind of wanted to Genesis Wave for 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, because if I tap the elves I may not have lethal. Can I animate a Vinestalk? Yeah, I guess I can. So that should do it. There's lots to keep track of. Yeah, that's plenty of damage. Alright, a lot of ways to close out the game here, but yeah, this one worked out as well. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand's a little awkward. Without a second land entering untapped, we can't even activate Fungus, and we may not have a land to put in play. Double Genesis Wave is a bit much. This is better. So we're looking at Fungus, turn 2 activate. Maybe don't need the Green Blade, although can maybe get rid of a land instead, since Green Blade finds a land. Just means maybe waiting on the case. Opponent with a Restless Reef, so blue-black. If they remove Fungus, just play a tapped Vinestalk. If not, Pylons, and then put Vinestalk in play. And do I need to keep Sanctum? Probably not. Opponent passes. End of turn I'm sacking the Fungus no matter what, I think. Possible they have an artifact or enchantment they're afraid of running out now. Opponent does keep up 2 mana. So now we could double spell Green Blade with Letter Elves, which seems fine. Yeah, I guess we'll play the Green Blade and get Archway, which is good with the case. Maybe could have sequenced differently and played the Pylons first, so Green Blade doesn't die to cut down. Although Elves would still die to it. Alright, Overlord is next. Draw 2 discard. And then now we can tap out for the case. Get to play 2 lands. So maybe it's Archway and Pylons just to maximize deserts for Green Blade. And Transfer's fine. And then next turn we might want to pick up Pylons to surveil again. We are maybe delaying solving the case by playing the Archway, but we've got plenty of other things going on. Opponent takes out the Green Blade, discarding Fountain Port. Passes it back. So Elves can start by attacking. Or maybe tapping for mana makes more sense, since I might draw into something useful. Try and tap down the Elves. Draw 2. Alright, so just a bunch of lanes here. So now we probably want to try and solve the case, so we can just play 2 tap lands as well. Get those out of the way. Case is solved. Fungus on top can be an answer to the Overlord. And now Cruelty, starting from Chapter 1, sees an empty hand. Their opponent is a Reanimator deck, which explains the Overlord to fill the graveyard, but nothing worth reanimating yet. Lookout on top. So I probably want to Fungus to destroy Cruelty now, before they get to search. Play a land of the top. And a Green Shell. So if I play Green Shell, I guess I'm going to be short on mana to Fungus blow up Cruelty. Yeah, that's maybe still the priority. We can probably handle the Overlord once it's a creature. Especially if we have 10 lands in play. So let's see, 4, 5. So I may not want to play Archway, although I've kind of lost track of how many extra lanes I've already played. I think I've played one off the top of my deck. So yeah, let's just keep it simple, play Forest, and then next turn play Green Shell, pumping the team. Harvester can take out our smaller stuff. And land on top. Reason to maybe play the land is if, let's say we find a Genesis Wave, I can draw into it with Green Shell and then still cast it. Although I would probably want a Genesis Wave for at least 5. So maybe it's fine to just play it for now. Find another case. Sure. A Letter Elves we can play. Play the Vinestalk. And then now we'll draw into the Genesis Wave, which should be fine. Cruelty can make me discard it. And keep playing stuff off the top. So first we can search and then trigger Green Shell. And find another desert. Put land in play. And do I want to attack here? Yeah, that's probably reasonable. Even though now they can destroy Green Shell and attack unopposed with the Overlord. We're also threatening a lot of damage. So our opponent double blocks. Overlord is the priority for sure. Alright, our opponent jumps instead. That's surprising. So 6 mana, what's it gonna be? An attack first, so we can block with the Green Shell. Let's say they have a nowhere to run to shrink it down. Then we would still take out the Overlord. Doesn't die to another Harvester either. Yeah, the cases are putting in a lot of work. Possible they have a cover up here and they're deciding what to exile out of my library, but no, opponent scoops it up before we could Genesis Wave. But yeah, they're in trouble. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a promising hand. Turn 1 Elves can set up maybe turn 2 Fungus Activate, so we wouldn't mind drawing an extra land. And then Entrancer, maybe tapping down itself to draw 2. Alright, Elf is no more. Which is a pretty normal outcome, to be fair. The most popular decks, both mono black and mono red, have multiple 1-mana answers. But it's gonna now torch the Fungus. So maybe not your typical red aggro deck, but more of a red-black sacrifice deck. Lookout was a great draw. And then we've got a creature we can maybe tap down with the Entrancer. I'll keep land on top. And now in Urabrask's Forge, we can still block the 1/1. So no great attacks. Okay, get in for 1, and then we can tap it down. And there's another Genesis Wave. For now we can play the Vinestalk. And then next turn Tatyova into Thornwood Falls. Immediately draw a card. This might be another Torch the Tower coming our way. Or maybe a Nowhere to Run, but that would also take out Tatyova. So I'm actually fine if we can bait one of those out. It's going to be a Braids instead. Okay, that's fine. And then I could sack the Lookout. Sure. Stick to the plan. And keep the Entrancer on defense. If Tatyova lives, great, don't expect it to. But either way, we can Genesis Wave next turn. Ideally, cast it for X = 5 so we can hit our green shell and replacement Tatyovas. But since we have 2, I might just fire off another one in the meantime. Yeah, I'll block. And Artist with Raid enabled. I will lose 3. Okay, so we still have Tatyova. Now, do I want to fire off Genesis Wave? I guess we can wait a turn. And instead, just play a tap land. See what we draw. Fungus, also an answer to Urabrask's Forge, which is probably worth it. Can just do that now. And then pass a turn. So next turn we can wave for 5. Fear of missing out will discard and draw. Delirium has been enabled. So this can be pretty good in combination with cards like Urabrask's Forge, triggering several times. If they have another Torch the Tower, they could sack the Fear to finish off Tatyova. And Artist attacking, I'll take the trade. And another Fear of missing out. We'll discard and draw. They did have an answer to Tatyova, they just weren't willing to go for it. And yeah, we're not going to waste any time. X = 5 is where it's at. And we'll put everything in play. Tap down, maybe the Lookout to draw 2 more, but yeah, opponent's gonna throw in the towel since we're drawing a bunch more here off Tatyova as well. So yeah, we got to see our Genesis Wave deck in action, and whenever we got to resolve a big Genesis Wave, it was usually game over, so I'm quite impressed by what the deck is capable of. Now it can take a little bit to set up, and as we've seen in the matchups like Red-White Auras, and the same is going to be true for Mono-Red Aggro, those matchups are quite common in Best of 1, especially on the ranked ladder, so those are going to be pretty bad for the most part, so I can't really recommend playing this to rank up, but if you just want to cast big green spells and have fun, this might still be a deck for you. So that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.